It was a dark time in their history. Civil war, playboy priests, greed, gluttony, and godlessness on every street corner. The nation of Israel desperately needed a leader to call them back to God. Join us today as we explore the life of God's chosen man, the prophet Samuel. Welcome to the Shalom Y'all Ministries podcast. I'm your co-host, Adam Kime, along with my great friend, Dr. Daniel McCabe. Daniel, the NFL draft has recently concluded. No, it's an event that you wait on pins and needles for every year, no doubt.
I do.
How do you feel about your Cowboys ramping up their defense?
Well, I feel the same way every year after the draft. I am always confident that we are poised for a Super Bowl champion. So this draft is no different from every other draft, but I'm liking it.
All right, well, that's good. I have to confess to you and admit something you'll be happy to hear.
Let's hear it.
This is the first year that I have focused more on what the Cowboys were doing in the draft than what the Minnesota Vikings were doing.
Oh my, you
I
have
know
become a Texan.
it's in order to become a real Texan, I have to at least embrace the Dallas Cowboys, I think. I mean, I will always be a Vikings fan at heart, of course, as I'm always a Twins fan at heart, but I also dearly love now the Texas Rangers and I think maybe even the Dallas
Well, you go.
Cowboys.
Love it.
Yes.
Welcome home.
Well, thank you. We here at Shalom Y'all truly believe that a walk through the land deepens your walk with the Lord. Our mission is to teach and encourage those who love the Bible, the land of the Bible, and, of course, the people of the land. Our hope is that we can indeed journey through the promised land with you, our dear listeners, someday when the time is right. So please reach out for more information on how that could be possible for you or your group. Now, as we try to do regularly on the podcast, we shall begin with a couple of mini topics before focusing on our main subject matter on the one and only Samuel. So, Daniel, what do you have to lead off for us today?
Adam, a 30-something single Jewish woman who believes in Yeshua, a rock, and a quiet desert east of Jerusalem. That's how my mini begins today. Oriel Moran loves the desert behind her home, and she often blogs from there, and that's how I discovered her on YouTube. Beautiful sunsets, a warm breeze on her cheek, an occasional rock bunny sighting, and of course, her favorite place to sit and pray. These are the memories that draw her back to it again and again, and what she shows in so many of her videos. She's particularly at home in the desert, where she so often found healing from past and present wounds. She's been very open about some of the struggles she's had through her life, especially as a teenager, and how we all need a place like that to heal. I don't know if you had a place like that when you were young or have a place like that now, but don't we all need some place where we can kind of get and just lay our lives open before the Lord and say, help me.
Yes.
Well, she finds that in the desert. But all this brings me back to the rock. For Oriel has an unusual but wonderful way that she finds comfort in the desert. I've been really surprised at the beauty of the desert myself as I've watched some of her videos, and it does seem like a very calming place to be, that takes you away from the hustle and bustle of life. But when she's haunted by like a hurtful memory from her past or something even that's happened recently, and she can't make sense of things, or she can't find any hope in her circumstances, what she'll do is she'll walk to like a high point. She'll leave her house, go out the door, and walk a while down a path until she gets to some high point there in the rocky terrain behind her house. She'll pick up a rock that she finds on the ground. Then she associates that rock with her hurt, and then hurls it down to the desert's bottom. I love that. In that action, which she always makes sure she accompanies by worship, she finds renewal and even joy in that, and she has shared that with other people, and I just find it fascinating. So, I don't live in a rocky desert. I'm looking out at oak trees as I sit here in my office, and Oriole's hurt may not always match my own, won't match your own either, but whether your favorite spot's a desert or a dock or a deer stand, maybe we should all consider creating our own version of Oriel's rock throwing ritual. But if we do, it can't just be something we do for the sake of doing it. We've got to make sure that we're doing it from a heart of worship from our spot. There's that verse in First Peter 5:7 that I think she's trying to encapsulate in this ritual. And it's a good reminder to us all to cast all our anxieties on him, for he cares for us.
Hmm.
So my quiet place is probably nighttime when everyone else is asleep, and I find a little comfortable chair in the living room that I like very much, and that's probably where I've been known to cry and heal or get frustrated with the Lord. And I don't think I should be throwing rocks in our living room, but maybe I should go outside and throw rocks in the
Yeah.
woods or something. But we all need places like that. I just thought that was a great story. You can find Oriel on YouTube. I think her YouTube name is Oriel in Israel. Just a fine young lady.
Hmm. That's very cool.
It really is.
Well, for my mini topic this month, I want to tell you about something you might have seen if you've been to Jerusalem. Daniel, I know you've seen this.
Yes.
Um, I've spent some time here at the base of it, just kind of staring up at it. But other visitors to Jerusalem might have seen this and have probably wondered what it is.
Well, what I like about, and I know where you're going with this because you've given me the hint of where you're headed. But what I love about this place that you're going is that you've been to so many different places than I have, and when we put all our memories together, we get a fuller memory. But I've not been where you've stood.
Yeah, well, this thing that I'm about to tell you about, it's not like it's a biblical location or anything like that. It it rests upon a biblical area, of course, but
Yes.
yeah, and it's not like it's overly fascinating as a place to visit, but it is something you kind of see on, on the skyline as you're kind of looking around from old Jerusalem. Well, you may have noticed an old windmill
Mhm.
that the locals seem pretty proud of. It lies just southwest of the old city, perched atop the western slope of the Hinnom Valley. Now, I'm talking about the Montefiore windmill. It has been around from the sunset of the Ottoman Empire to the birth of modern Israel. It was built in 1857 by the British philanthropist Moses Montefiore. It's a good name to have if you're an Israeli or if you're Jewish, I suppose. Moses. Now, it was originally meant to help Jewish residents become self sufficient by grinding their own flour back in the day. But by the late 1940s, this symbol of industry was about to become a casualty of war. As the 1947 and 48 Civil War broke out, the windmill's location became important strategically. Standing on a slope overlooking the old city walls, it offered a perfect bird's eye view of the landscape. And the Jewish Haganah fighters realized this immediately, so they transformed the top of the tower into an observation post to monitor the blockade of Jerusalem. Now, naturally, the British Mandate authorities weren't exactly thrilled about a fortified sniper and scouting nest in the middle of a conflict zone. So in 1948, the British High Command finally had enough, and they ordered the windmill to be leveled. Now, in a bit of military wit, they dubbed the mission Operation Don Quixote, a nod to the fictional knight who famously tilted at windmills. But here's where the story turns into something kind of out of a movie. The demolition crew sent to blow up the tower just so happened to be from Ramsgate, England. Okay. Now, as they prepped the explosives, they noticed a plaque on the wall of the windmill. It didn't just have Montefiore's name, it mentioned his hometown in Ramsgate. Now, suddenly, this wasn't just a military target anymore, it was a piece of their own hometown history. According to local legend, one of the soldiers, the British soldiers, whose family had worked on Montefiore's English estates, reminded his comrades of the family's legendary kindness back in Britain. Moved by that connection, the unit decided to, well, reinterpret their orders. Instead of leveling the entire 50-foot stone structure, they carefully rigged the explosives to only destroy the observation post at the very top. They didn't want to destroy the whole windmill because it had that hometown connection. Now, because of those sentimental soldiers, the tower survived the war. Now, today, standing tall as a museum, it's been fully restored with its Kentish style cap and sails by a Dutch organization, actually, and who better to work on a windmill than the Dutch people?
Uh,
It was a
nice.
Dutch organization called Christians for Israel. Now, what a reminder that even in the middle of a civil war, sometimes a small connection to home is enough to save a landmark from the brink of destruction.
I have never heard that story, and in fact, I did not even look over your notes entirely before our podcast, and so I've just now, for the very first time, heard that story. That's fantastic.
Isn't that kind of cool? I mean, what are the odds,
Yeah,
that you're a British, troop of soldiers, and then you're there, and then you're about to blow the thing up. You look at the plaque, you're
Ramsgate.
like, wow, that's from my hometown. That's amazing. God works in detailed ways.
Yeah, I saw last night, one of the members of our church showed me a a little booklet, a little tract about the Lord that he found here in town,
Hmm.
and he pointed out to me that on the back it had a name, a name of a woman and the city where she's from. Now I'm 3 states away, and the name of the woman, I won't mention that on air because I don't know if I'll get it quite right, but I can mention the name of the city. It said Stephenville, Texas.
No way.
It did. It absolutely did. Somebody named Wilma something, left a track somewhere in town here, and it made its way all the way to my house. How about that?
That that's amazing. Well, as the ancient saying goes, all roads lead through Rome to Stephenville, Texas.
There you go.
So, Daniel, what is this month's trivia question?
Well, last month, I think we had a question about language, and I'm gonna just keep that theme rolling today. I don't think it'll be as difficult as last month's question. I think you'll get it,
Hmm.
but we'll see. So, there are many different languages spoken in Jerusalem. Some, are Arabic, Armenian, Greek, Hebrew, lots of them. But
Yeah.
the following 4 words all mean hello in one of the 4 aforementioned languages. So, I'm gonna speak hello to you, or I'll probably butcher it, but I'm gonna say hi to you in Arabic, Armenian, Greek, and Hebrew,
All right.
not necessarily in that order. And in fact, I think I put them in alphabetical order. Yes, there they are. And then you tell me which one of them is the Arabic greeting and hello. Can you do
Hmm.
it?
All right. I'll try.
All right. So here they are. So I think I listed the languages in alphabetical order: Arabic, Armenian, Greek, and Hebrew. And now I'll list the 4 words for hello also in alphabetical order. So I keep you on your toes.
All right.
But they are Barev, Kairete, Marhaba, and Shalom. And I do apologize to all of you who may have Arabic, Armenian, Greek, and Hebrew backgrounds for the poor pronunciation. But Barev, Kairete, Marhaba, and Shalom. Which one of those means hello in Arabic? And I'll have the answer for you later in the podcast. Well, the year is 1100 BC. I guess we could give or take a little on that. And there are tear stained pillows inside the home of a Jewish man named Elkanah. He's inconspicuously referred to in the Bible as simply a certain man. Elkanah had taken a new wife, so it's kind of easy to wonder, why are there tears in the home? This should be a happy occasion. But we've all come to learn that intense love and broken hearts often bloom in the same field. For after several years of marriage to his precious wife, his first wife, Hannah, she still had not borne him any children. She's crushed, and he's crushed. And so he marries again, hoping that his second wife could give him a son, even though this isn't as at all the way, he had planned for things to go. Well, even so, living in the hill country town of Twin Peaks, or as the Bible calls it in Hebrew, Ramathaim Zophim, Rama for short, Elkanah and his family enjoyed spectacular sights outside the door each morning. 10 miles to the west, he could see the never ending aqua waters of the Great Sea, known to us as the Mediterranean Sea. And on certain days, he might spot a stray seagull circling in the sky just above his home that had ventured further inland than most. The winds were always salty in the morning as it came off the sea, and it would rush through his hair and beard on its way on its daily journey, really eastward towards Shiloh or Jerusalem further south. Now, in the flatland below Elkanah's frontier town, with the wind in his favor, he might even be able to make out the busy voices of Philistine farmers who were harvesting their crops. And if you squint, you might even see the dust being kicked up by travelers just outside of town as travelers are headed for the sea to swap goods or to catch a ship to Egypt or Tyre. So as he woke to his daily postcard, and particularly over the last several weeks, the beauty of the surroundings, the neighborhood there, well, it belied the painful choices he would make, because although he loved his sweet Hannah, he felt compelled to take that second bride. The stigma of childlessness was too much for him to bear. I mean, he loved the Lord, but he could do something. He should do something, right? So he does. He marries again. He married a young lady named Penina. Now, he could never love her like Hannah. She wasn't half the woman Hannah was, but he wanted a son to carry on the family name and to provide for himself and perhaps for Hannah in their old age. So in his mind, it must be done, and everyone agreed. And just as he hoped, over the years that followed, Penina would bear him sons and daughters, but all that would be at a very high cost to the family. Well, every year, Elkanah would travel with his family to the tabernacle at Shiloh for 2 weeks to fulfill his duties as a Levite. He helped out the priests there with the tabernacle music. We know from the listings that are given in Chronicles. And the whole family traveled with him there to Shiloh. And while there, Elkanah, the Bible tells us, he presented a peace offering at the tabernacle on behalf of the family, most likely a goat or a lamb, a portion of which the priests were required to send home with Elkanah from the tabernacle so that he could eat it with his family. And as you may recall, a peace offering was sometimes given to the Lord for no reason other than to say, Lord, I'm grateful that my family and I have a relationship with you and that we're at peace with you and with one another. But of course, we know from this story that there was no true peace in Elkanah's home, and Hannah, sensing the irony, could not eat it with the family. So she went to pray at the tabernacle. Much of the story may kind of be coming back to you as I read it. And there in chapter 2, she prays. But, the scene of her praying is really very unique. The tabernacle was a noisy place, always was. Worshipers bringing their animals for sacrifice. And you got the cattle lowing and the sheep and the goats bleating. And it was a bloody place too. We got the male worshipers standing just inside the curtain front gate of the tabernacle. And that would have been only a few feet from Hannah where she's standing and praying. And the male worshipers would place their hands on the heads of their animal offerings as a symbol of identification with them. They'd pull back their heads and slit their throats, while the priests in dressed in white with blood spattered garments, would collect the blood from the dying animal to be sprinkled on the altar. The tabernacle was a spectacular setting. It was just a mix of sounds, a mix of bright colors from the fire and the colored curtains, and then you had the dark colors as well, the rising smoke and the dried blood. It was quite a scene. Well, there amidst all these sounds and smells, you can picture Hannah standing there by herself, looking at her. She seemed to probably be a rapidly aging woman from holler grief and a sad face, perhaps heartbroken face, a bowed head, and no doubt a broken heart. And that would have been quite a contrast. We can read in 1 Samuel 2 to the loud giggling women who regularly congregated at the tabernacle entrance, and we can tell from that they flirted with the priests, and um, they gave away flippantly their virginity, probably in a desperate attempt to find love, or perhaps more cynically to pay for a choice cut of meat taken from the sacrifices earlier in the day that their priest boyfriends wrapped up for them to take home. It was just a dark time for the nation of Israel. And so those women and Hannah, what a contrast, godly Hannah and the silly, ungodly woman. But here's Hannah. She's alone with the Lord. She's praying. She's crying. She's wondering if her pain would ever find relief, and the difficulty of the tension between her and Penina in the home. And she spotted, it doesn't come as a shock to me that Eli, the high priest, sitting there would spot Hannah moving her lips in prayer and thinking to himself, "Is she drunk?" That seemed like it was more the normal scene of the tabernacle than anything. But what does surprise me is that Eli actually confronts Hannah at the gate about her possible drunkenness, because what we know about Eli, he doesn't seem to really have much moral courage to confront anyone, and certainly not his immoral adult sons that were working just inside the tabernacle. But in that moment, I think Eli quickly realized that this woman standing before him was very different. She was sincere and appeared to be a godly woman, and that as they talk, he realizes or wishes her well, that God will answer her prayer, and God's answer to Hannah's prayer would soon change both of their lives. And before we know it, we see a baby born to Hannah, and then without hesitation, though not, I'm sure, without difficulty, she dedicates her son as after he's weaned to the tabernacle for the service of God. And it's there that no doubt Eli clearly found a special comfort in his relationship with young Samuel. I don't know what people's impressions are of Eli. I think he was a very flawed man. There's no doubt about that. He appears to have been gluttonous, and as I mentioned, he was unable to restrain his grown children. But I don't think he was a harsh man, and I think Eli, on some level, did care about the Lord, but he didn't develop the skill set or the courage, oh, whatever it was, to lead his nation, and he was supposed to as the high priest, and he just didn't seem to be standing for righteousness. No doubt he could see God's hand on Samuel from the earliest of days, and so felt a very special kinship with him and with his parents, and that must have been good for his heart, given all the things around him that just weren't right. But I think Samuel represents, in his writing of First Samuel, the story, the contrast of his family with Eli's family, and these two families clearly do collide in the opening chapters of First Samuel, and I think it's meant so that the reader could learn a lesson, that only those who seek God's presence in their lives will, at least in these Old Testament days, that they would prosper. Now, Elkanah and Hannah will dedicate little Samuel to the Lord. We know that he's going to grow to be a godly man. He's going to turn out to be the last judge of Israel. He's going to point people to the Lord and anoint the first king of Israel. So he's going to turn into this amazing man of God. But then on the other hand, we got Eli and his two grown sons who are failing to honor the Lord. And so it's just then that the Bible records a nameless man with very purposeful steps, who's working his way through the hard dirt streets of Shiloh. He's passing the pitch tents of the Levites that surrounded the tabernacle on all four sides. He can look up and see the plumes of the smoke from the altar fires. I'm confident that this guy knew the streets pretty well, for the Bible calls him a man of God, just simply a man of God. It's another way I think of saying that he was a prophet, and prophets of God, they know the heart and mind of God, or at least the true prophets did. And prophets, as we all should, spent time in quietude rather, and prayer and study. But we all know too the blessings and the necessity of public worship. So perhaps that day, felt like any other day to Eli when he saw the man of God approaching the tabernacle to worship. But then he could have quickly noticed that on this day the man of God didn't have a goat or lamb at his side. The man of God was not here today for personal worship. His steps weren't directed towards the gate curtains, but to the place where Eli was sitting nearby. He had a mission of God to speak directly to Eli. We don't know the day, the time, the occasion of the meeting, but Eli clearly never forgot that day. His life and legacy were never going to be the same after that day, because God would soon, by the word of this man of God, would remove Eli and his sons from the priesthood. Now, the account in First Samuel next turns to that well-known scene of Samuel as a boy running to Eli in the night. We all know that story. We learned it when we were kids, and he thought Eli had called him, but it wasn't Eli had called him. God had called Samuel. And before the chapter ends, here's what we read. We read, quote, "So Samuel grew, and the Lord was with him, and let none of his words fall to the ground. For the Lord revealed himself to Samuel in Shiloh by the word of the Lord." And then the next time we see Samuel 3 chapters later, he's no longer a boy. He's charging the nation to put away their idols. He's a man, strong and well respected. It's easy to forget that the strength of our adult years is forged in large part by our teen years. They're pretty critical years. They were for Samuel too, when you're going to have to decide on your own if the faith of your parents would be your own faith. And that's what Samuel had to decide. Is the faith of my parents going to be the rudder that leads me forward, the faith in the Lord? Well, Samuel he chose the Lord, and he chose to honor the Lord, and we see that faithfulness in his life all his days. And God would then choose him to change the nation. And what a challenge I think that is for us, to choose the Lord even in some difficult circumstances. And Samuel certainly experienced those and would. And then that brings us, I guess, to chapter 8, and that's, I think, we're going to pick up the story, huh, Adam?
Yeah, we'll pick it up there. But that's a wonderful walk through the context of how God brings Samuel into Israel. The dark days were there, and already we have some characters that I love Hannah. I think Hannah
Mhm.
is one of those people that I is she's so wonderful to me. Just her
Mhm.
faith, her desire that God is gracious to her and grants her. And there's a almost seemingly just kind of random verse in the Bible here that always moves me. And I'm somebody who I don't maybe I'm weird for this. I don't know. I don't think I'm weird for it. I think we should be. Like I get excited about the dramatic things in scripture, and even God's the smiting of the Amalekites, and when Jesus comes back in glory and defeats his enemies, and kind of all those hardcore things. But for some reason, whenever I see the verse in 1 Samuel 2:19, and his mother used to make for him a little robe and take it
Ah.
to him each year when she went up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. For some
Mhm.
reason, it just melts my heart. I think of this mother who gave up her
Mhm.
son that she wanted more than anything to God in a faithful act, that he would serve at the tabernacle, and she would make him a little robe. And every year she just looked forward to this time where she can see her son again, but still care for him as a mother does. Oh, it melts
Mhm.
my heart.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. So I love Hannah, and Eli is one of those guys that I'm with you. His failings are made crystal clear, but he doesn't strike me as a wicked person.
No.
And what a conflicted character. He's just one of those. people in the Bible that I would love to know more about. Like I'd love to know him as a person. But then, of course, Samuel, and I wanted to do this episode because Samuel is one of those people in the Bible that I'm drawn to.
Okay.
He's one of my guys. And there's a few people that when I read about them in the scriptures, for some reason I'm just drawn to them. The apostle Peter is one of those people. Joshua is one of those people.
Mm,
And on the podcast, we've talked many times about kind of the Mount Rushmore of Bible characters.
right.
And I have different Mount Rushmores. Well, my main Mount Rushmore is the four greatest people of the Bible to me. And we're talking about non-divine persons, or else Jesus would take up all four, right? Besides Jesus himself, the four people that are on my Mount Rushmore. The number one with a bullet absolutely is David, the king. You can't get better to me in my eyes. Um, and then you have Moses up there as well. And then number three would be, and I'm going to dodge the lightning bolts here, dare to say with an asterisk, Abraham.
Okay, I was wondering if he's gonna make that.
And he has to be up there
I think he
because
should, yeah.
I'm convinced God would put him there.
Right, right.
And I can't not put a guy on a Mount Rushmore that I'm convinced God would have up there. And just these people on this Mount Rushmore, not only are you great in character, importance, but you have gravitas.
Mm,
And Abraham has that. He just how God has used him. Anyway, this isn't about Abraham. Number four on my Mount Rushmore is Samuel.
okay.
He is an absolute hero to me, and he's one of those guys I'm drawn to, and he's on my Mount Rushmore of the main character Mount
Yeah,
Rushmores
and
to me.
our listeners are probably picking up on the fact that you are the one that chose this topic today, and you're like, "Let's do Samuel." So it's coming
Yes.
out very strong.
Yeah, and Samuel, he's an amazing person, and what I'm going to focus on my main topic is kind of four slices of his life of how God has used him, these instrumental, uh, pivotal points in history of how Samuel is just used in them. And he is a rare character who is he was prophet, priest, and judge. Not prophet, priest, and king. Only Jesus is that. But he was a prophet, he was a priest, he was a judge. He is just such an instrumental person at a critical time in world history and Israel's history that God used. And there's nothing, I'll be careful and say there's nothing negative said about him. The closest you can come to is his focus is a bit off in one time, and we'll come upon that. But by and large, he's just a guy that he's not sinless because all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God,
Yeah,
except Jesus
the
Christ.
one thing that seems to be on some people's lists here with regards to any flaws is the way he also struggled with his kids.
Yeah, and so we'll actually start with that. And there's another little
Ah,
thing that
okay.
I had in mind there, but it's amazing to me how yes, his sons turned out bad.
It's
And we
ironic.
can we can get on Eli's case for that.
Mhm.
Um but Samuel is a phenomenal man of God yet. And so we'll get to my first passage here. I've already spent a lot of time gushing about Samuel. But the first passage is 1 Samuel 8, where Israel demands a king. And we read here that when Samuel became old, he made his sons judges over Israel. The name of his firstborn son was Joel, and the name of his second Abijah. And I'm in 1 Samuel 8. They were judges in Beersheba. Yet his sons did not walk in his ways, but turned aside after gain. They took bribes and perverted justice. They didn't walk in his ways. Samuel's ways were great. But this goes to show, and this is another topic for another day. You can be a great man yourself, or you can have a great husband and wife, parents, but their kids are their own individual people that have to choose to follow after the Lord. You don't inherit your parents' faith. And Samuel, to me, is the classic example of that. As great as he was, we don't know the parent that he was, the father that he was. I don't get the sense that he was some failure as a dad. What this shows me is that we are all individuals And we are all individually accountable before God. Now, being faithful parents, God does use that, of course, in the lives of your children, and it's important, but there's no guarantee that just because you're a believer, your children will turn out that way. And I know a lot of people struggle with that. But the context here is that his sons are no good. But verse 4 says, Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, Behold, you are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint for us a king to judge us like all the nations. The thing displeased Samuel when they said, Give us a king to judge us. Now, why did this displease Samuel? If you have a wide range view of the historical context of what God plans to do with the nation of Israel, desiring a king wasn't in itself the problem. In fact, God had already given hints that there would be a king. Like, he enters into a covenant relationship with them. He's in his plan, he's going to have king for them. In fact, great king, David, and Jesus Christ himself will be the ultimate king. The problem wasn't so much a king. They wanted a king to judge them like all the nations. Everybody else has a king. Why don't we? Everybody else has a king that fights their battles for them, and there's certain benefits to having a king. That they wanted a king like all the other nations showed the deep problem that they weren't rightly seeing that they did have an even greater king if they would have just submitted to God himself as their king. So that's why it displeased Samuel when they said that. So he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said to Samuel, Obey the voice of the people and all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, because Samuel was judging over them. And God is telling him, they're not rejecting you, Samuel. They've rejected me from being king over them, according to all the deeds that they've done from the day I brought them up out of Egypt, even to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods. So they're also doing to you. They were not coming under the good leadership of Samuel that God had provided for them. Verse 9 says, Now then, obey their voice. Only you shall solemnly warn them and show them the ways of the king who shall reign over them. And then, so if you were to keep reading that context, he would go on to explain, well, here's what a king like all the other nations is going to do to you. He's going to press your sons into service, your daughters into service, and, tax you and multiply armies for himself, all that sort of stuff. So, okay, fine, you'll get what you want. And that's why you need to be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. The problem was the people were not faithfully following God, as we have already seen in the days of Eli and all that. So God is about to give them the king that they want. Okay. And of course, you know who that is. He would find for them a king that, in the eyes of humans, would be just a great king. Oh, he's tall, he's rich, he's handsome, he's powerful. Yeah, he's the guy that we would want. And we'll see how that turns out for them. So we transition to 1 Samuel 12, picking up in verse 19. All the people said to Samuel, and this is sometime later, Pray for your servants to the Lord your God that we may not die, for we've added all of our sins to this evil to ask for ourselves a king. Okay, some time has passed, and Samuel's confronting them about something, and they're like, okay, we know that we've sinned. We haven't been following God rightly. So Samuel said to the people, Do not be afraid. You have done all this evil. Yet do not turn aside from following the Lord, but serve the Lord with all your heart. And this is one of the great things about Samuel. This was always his focus. People follow the Lord, serve him. He says, Do not turn aside after empty things that cannot profit or deliver, for they are empty. For the Lord will not forsake his people, for his great name's sake, because it has pleased the Lord to make you a people for himself. Moreover, as for me, far be it from me that I should sin against the Lord by ceasing to pray for you. And I will instruct you in the good and the right way. Only fear the Lord and serve him faithfully with all your heart. For consider what great things he has done for you. And this is why I wanted to focus on this passage. It might seem at random, but this really shows the character of Samuel and where his focus always was. But he adds to them, But if you still do wickedly, you shall be swept away, both you and your king. And Saul was their king. And at first, now, this is another story for another day. Saul is one of those people that, like Samuel, I'm convinced, I kind of have a soft place in my heart for.
Huh?
His failings too are evident, but he was God's anointed for the task of being their king. And in many ways, he was successful, at least at first. On paper, he was a successful king in many ways. But as we'll see with our next slice in history, the next pivotal moment, Saul was rejected as king. And for this, we pick up in 1 Samuel 15, verse 17. Now, at this point, Saul had already committed a grave error in offering up a sacrifice which he was not authorized to do as king. Samuel had told him on a different occasion, "Wait for me. I'll come to you at the appointed time. I'll come and offer the sacrifice." Saul was getting nervous because time was passing by. He hadn't seen Samuel yet. So he offered an unauthorized sacrifice. He had already started to show his failings as a faithful king. So in 1 Samuel 15, God had commanded Saul to eliminate the Amalekites, devote them to destruction, all of them. And he failed in that. The people withheld some of the treasures for themselves. He spared the king, Agag. And so Samuel has to confront him on this. And he tells Saul in 1 Samuel 15:17, "Though you are little in your own eyes," or at least Saul was, "are you not the head of the tribes of Israel? The Lord anointed you king over Israel. The Lord sent you on a mission and said, 'Go, devote to destruction the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they're consumed.' Why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord? Why did you pounce on the spoil and do what was evil in the sight of the Lord?" And Saul said to Samuel, "Well, I've obeyed the voice of the Lord. I've gone on the mission on which the Lord sent me. I have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and I have devoted the Amalekites to destruction. But the people
Mm.
took of the spoil, sheep and oxen, the best of the things devoted to destruction, to sacrifice to the Lord your God in Gilgal." Saul is playing fast and loose with what he was told to do here. But Samuel's focus still was always on the glory of God and he being obeyed. And so Samuel said this in verse 22, kind of these famous words: "Has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to listen than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and presumption is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you've rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king." Now, Saul, I think, is realizing the gravity of the situation here because he says to Samuel, "I've sinned, for I've transgressed the commandment of the Lord and your words because I feared the people and obeyed their voice." That's a true statement. "Now, therefore, please pardon my sin and return with me that I may bow before the Lord." And Samuel said to Saul, "I will not return with you, for you've rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel." As Samuel turned to go away, Saul seized the skirt of his robe, and it tore. And Samuel said to him, "The Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you this day, and has given it to a neighbor of yours, who is better than you." Oh, that must have stung Saul
Mm.
deeply, no doubt. I mean, Saul was human, and we can put ourselves in Saul's sandals or very nice, expensive, kingly battle boots and kind of feel what he's feeling almost. I mean, he was chosen for this special role as Israel's first king. Now, as I said earlier, he was the king that the people wanted. And I think God granted that to them to show them, to teach them a lesson. And in some ways, Saul was successful. But they first got the king they wanted. God had in store next the king that they needed. And as great as Samuel is, he's fourth place on my Mount Rushmore. Part of his reason for being there is because of how instrumental he was in making way for the number one on my list, David. Samuel had such a special honor in anointing David as king. And we see in 1 Samuel 16, the Lord said to Samuel, and this is kind of where I look at is really one of the only kind of maybe negative things, and this is pretty good if this is the maybe the worst thing said about you. The Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you grieve over Saul, since I've rejected him from being king over Israel?" God had to confront Samuel a little bit over how he was feeling about this situation, which God does many times in the scriptures. Confront people over how they're feeling about things. You can feel wrongly about things. Now Samuel, he was grieving over the situation, but God had to lift him up a bit. How long are you going to grieve over this? I've rejected him. Fill your horn with oil and go. I will send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I've provided for myself a king among his sons. And Samuel said, How can I go? If Saul hears it, he'll kill me. And the Lord said, Take a heifer with you and say, I've come to sacrifice to the Lord, and invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I'll show you what you shall do. And you shall anoint for me him whom I declare to you. Now Samuel did what the Lord commanded, and of course that statement right there is wonderful. Samuel always did what the Lord commanded, and he came to Bethlehem. The elders of the city came to meet him trembling and say, Do you come peaceably? And he said, Peaceably, I've come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice. And he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. See, this was a dangerous game. Of course, everybody's afraid because if Saul knows Samuel's going to go and anoint someone else as king, I'm the king. He's going to be enraged. So naturally, everybody's kind of afraid of this, including Samuel. Now, when they came, he looked on Jesse's firstborn son, Eliab, and thought, Well, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. He must have been an impressive young man. But the Lord said to Samuel, Do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I've rejected him. And not that Eliab was bad and God was saying, no, Be gone from me. He was just communicating, That's not the one I've chosen. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. You know, the king that Israel needed was somebody beyond just what everybody else would assume a king should be. God knows what the king needs to be. So then Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel, and he said, Neither has the Lord chosen this one. And then Jesse made Shammah pass by, and he said, Neither has the Lord chosen this one. And Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. And Samuel said to Jesse, The Lord has not chosen these. Then Samuel said to Jesse, Are all your sons here? And he said, There remains yet the youngest, but behold, he's keeping the sheep. He's a young one that's up tending the sheep. He can't quite possibly be a king that God has in mind. That's my Adam ad lib there.
Got it.
The Adam revised version. And Samuel said to Jesse, Send and get him, for we will not sit down till he comes here. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and had beautiful eyes and was handsome, which is kind of ironic because outward appearance is pretty good here, right? But he had more going on for him. God sees the heart. And the Lord said, Arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon David from that day forward. And Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. Now, Daniel, another day we'll have to have an episode devoted to the greatness of David, or many episodes.
Or just to even that phrase there, the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon David. Isn't that
Yes,
great?
from that day forward.
Yeah.
And, even David's failings are clear to us as well,
Mhm.
because he too is not sinless.
No.
Only Jesus has that distinction. But this episode's about Samuel, so I have one more very brief slice of his life. And pulling back now to 1 Samuel 7, this statement is made. Verses 15 to 17, Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life. And he went on a circuit year by year to Bethel, Gilgal, and Mizpah. And he judged Israel in all these places. Then he would return to Ramah, for his home was there. And there also he judged Israel, and he built there an altar to the Lord. Now Bethel is up on the Benjaminite plateau, just north of Jerusalem, so he'd go down to Gilgal, down towards the Dead Sea, or the Jordan River crossing, where Israel crossed under Joshua sometime before that, and then back up to Mizpah, which is near Bethel. And even Ramah is near Bethel and Mizpah. So it's not like he traveled very far geographically. His stomping grounds were kind of in that one area. And so no doubt the people would flock to him there. But he was recognized by the nation as God's man, as the prophet, the seer, the priest, the judge. Even during the reigns of Saul and when David was coming onto the scene, Samuel still was the man of God in the eyes of the people. And then we get the brief statement in chapter 25, verse 1. And this is one of the times in scripture where there are a few people I've already mentioned that as you're reading throughout their lives and in the Bible, and many chapters are devoted to them, you, I can't help but tear up when you just read about their death. You know, Moses is that guy, David's that guy, Samuel's this guy. Now Samuel died, and all Israel assembled and mourned for him, and they buried him in his house of Ramah. Here, this spiritual giant of a man is now gone, and the people no longer have access to him. Now, of course, they always have access to God, and that was the common problem, is they would often take their eyes off of God. um, but Samuel is just, man, I can't wait to meet him. When when I get to heaven, obviously the joy comes because we'll be with God. But what a bonus it is that we'll also get to meet our biblical heroes. I can't wait to meet Samuel and just ask him about his life, about his ministry. You know, what were things like, not only in the famous stories that we know about, but the random slices in life that we have no information on. Samuel, what was it like when you were 30? What was it like when you were traveling down to Gilgal and back? And tell me some stories. And oh man, I can't wait to meet him. What an amazing man of God who always focused on the glory of God and his servitude and the honor that his people should have paid to him.
Well, let's go back, I should say, to our trivia question from before, where I mentioned that we're going to talk about languages. And Israel has many languages, but particularly four that I'm going to mention today are Arabic, Armenian, Greek, and Hebrew. And I've asked the question earlier, the following four words all mean hello, but which one of them means hello in Arabic? So, all right, I stumbled through the intro again there, Adam, but are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. So, which of these means Arabic? Is it Barev, Kairete, Marhaba, or Shalom?
I'm going to take them out of order and start with Shalom is not the Arabic one.
Okay.
It is the Hebrew one.
Yes.
Shalom is kind of like aloha, where it's peace, it's hello, it's goodbye. You know,
Right.
it's a very flexible greeting, and yeah. So shalom is Hebrew for sure.
Okay. It
There
is.
is another similar one, of course, in Arabic. That's not one of the options, but salam. It's kind of the same thing.
Yes.
Hello and peace and goodbye. Um, Kaireta is Greek, which means it's a command. It's an imperative to rejoice. I know in the New Testament, in the book of Philippians, you get your rejoice in the Lord
Yes.
always, and that's kairete.
It is.
So that's Greek. And you said the other one is there's Berev.
Barev. Uh huh.
Barev, I'm going to say is the Armenian one,
Okay.
only because I'm nothing of an Arabic expert, but the other one sounds more Arabic to me. So I'm going to go with Barev is Armenian. And what was the last one?
Marhaba.
I'm going to go with Marhaba is Arabic.
Well, you're right.
All right.
Marhaba is there. You got him. You nailed him. That's really
Well, good.
good. I knew you could knock off Shalom and Kairete pretty quickly from the list, but
The others, it was kind of, I had to make a guess, but it was which one sounded more Arabic to me.
yes, that's true. And again, all of you Armenians, please forgive me for butchering and uh, those of you who speak Arabic again. I apologize for the
Yes, we,
pronunciation.
well, we
Uh,
butchered them all, no
we
doubt.
d we did. Yeah, but shalom probably doesn't even sound right, you know, we
Yeah, probably not.
we probably have an accent there too, but anyway, very, very good. Do you know any other words in Arabic?
Okay, well, there's salam.
Yeah, you mentioned that one. Any others? No?
Yes, I know jihad.
Okay.
Yes, I know the ones that make the news.
Yes,
I
okay.
know Allahu Akbar.
Yes,
Yeah, but
alright.
I Arabic is one of those languages though I would love. It's like if you had a magic wand and like you could just give yourself a skill. Languages in general would be that the superpower. What
Mhm.
superpower would you like more than any other? To me, nobody thinks of this as a superpower, but being able to speak any language of the world
That would be
fluidly
cool.
in and out, I would love to be able to just communicate with anybody at any time in their own language. Arabic is one of those that if you only had a few, I would love
Mhm,
actually to be able to communicate with Arabic speaking people, to understand them on their own terms in their own language,
mhm.
um, because there is only so much understanding we have when most of what we know of something is kind of through the news or
Yeah.
through the media, which is going to be very skewed. I'd love to just learn more about how Arabic speakers think and what they believe and what makes
Mhm.
them tick.
Yeah.
Mainly, of course, so that I can minister to them better in a deeper way. But the Arabic language is fascinating to me. I know so little of it, but I'd love to know more.
Me too.
Well, all right. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode about the prophet, priest, and judge, Samuel. As we consider such great heroes of God from times gone by, may we continue their legacy of great faith in the Lord, their desire for his glory, and their call for us to serve him all of our days. Shalom, y'all.
Shalom, y'all.